so happy we alive.
And welcome to www.mooresongs.com. I'm Patrick Moore, and today we're greeting you from the great state of Hawaii, where I'm traveling on my sporadic world tour. And one of the really interesting things I've had a chance to do in traveling is to talk with people who are involved in issues and situations that I think are very pertinent to all of us everywhere. And one of these individuals is PAMELA Lichty. I met Pam very briefly at a dinner. I believe Hugh Downs was the speaker of the Drug Policy Foundation in Washington, D.C. a couple years ago. And we only had a chance to talk for a few seconds, and it's almost a miracle that we're back here now after all that time. But Pam has been involved with an organization known as the Drug
Policy Forum of Hawaii.
Drug Policy Forum of Hawaii. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to ask Pam about the Drug Policy Forum and what work she's doing here and what the situation is here in Hawaii. It's a very unique and different place.
Yes, it certainly is. Well, first of all, welcome. I'm glad you were able to come all the way out here, and I see you chose the right month to do it. So I went to college in the Midwest, so I kind of know what you're escaping from weather-wise. Yes, actually, a colleague and I from Hawaii met at a meeting of the Drug Policy Foundation in Washington, D.C. We didn't know each other before that. This was in 1992. And after we got back to Hawaii, we got together and decided to have an initial meeting to see if other people in Hawaii were interested in or concerned about the war on drugs and the impact that it was having on our state and on the nation. And so we had a preliminary meeting in April of '93. About 30 people came to that meeting. One thing led to another. In 1997, our organization was recognized by the IRS as a nonprofit group. And our mission is to educate the public and policymakers about current policies and alternatives to current policies with an eye to seeing what's best for society, really. What's good about current policies, what isn't working so well. How can we make our drug policies effective with the least cost to human beings and economic costs as well. Mm-hmm. So the organization's been going ever since then. We're a membership group. We have a little over 200 members at this time. We put on public forums. We put out a quarterly newsletter. We hold debates. We have a presence at the legislature, state legislature, trying to educate them on these really complicated issues. Uh-huh. And Don is a social scientist. I have a master's in public health. Other members of our board are physicians, attorneys, and other people who have different perspectives on how we're trying to deal with the drug problems in America and in Hawaii specifically.
And what would be some of the perspective of the Drug Forum of Hawaii when you speak about the war on drugs?
Well, most of us, we share a consensus that the current approaches, that is the war on drugs, zero tolerance approach, isn't working. It's a law enforcement based approach, as you know, and as a consequence of that, largely as a consequence of that, our jails, we have more people in jail per capita than any other nation in the world except for Russia. Our civil liberties are rapidly being eroded. There's what they call drug exceptions to the Bill of Rights. We feel that drug education in the schools is not being effective, that the rates of teenage use are higher than they are in most other Western cultures, that our just say no approach definitely isn't working. So these are some of our concerns. And on a proactive level, we're interested. Hawaii was the first state to pass a needle exchange legislation to prevent the spread of HIV. So we're very supportive of that legislation. And lately in our legislature, they've introduced bills to permit the medical use of marijuana. This is, I realize, a hot topic everywhere, or in the western U.S. particularly, As you may know, 6 western states have now passed referenda on the issue, and they've passed everywhere that they've been put up for a vote. And that would be Alaska, Washington, Oregon, California, Arizona, Nevada. And in our state, we don't have a referendum process. Do you have one in Indiana?
Not that I know of.
Which means that we can't take it directly to the people. We have to go through the legislature.
I see.
And so this year, quite an amazing thing happened. Our governor, Ben Cayetano, actually introduced legislation on the issue, as well as some other very far-reaching social issues like physician-assisted suicide. And so it was interesting, by him introducing the legislation, or having it introduced, he really raised the credibility of the whole issue. And so it's been a real lively legislative session. We have a 60-day legislative session here, and that's been one of the hot issues. Right now, the bills are being held in a committee, but there's some resolutions going forward to study it further. And this week, I don't know when this will be aired, but just this week or last week, the Institute of Medicine came out with a report. I know you're familiar with it, that talked about possible potential of medical use of marijuana. And so that's given it the issue real impetus, and we're going to keep working on that one.
And so in fact, the legislation involving the medical use of marijuana has been drawn up and has gone through the legislature here?
Well, it's gone partway through. I don't want to get into too much detail because
Okay.
it's pretty arcane, but it went through the health committees. They were very skeptical originally, but lots of patients came out, and people who are caregivers for people with AIDS or people who have cancer, and talked about the benefits to their loved ones or to themselves, and some physicians testified as well. And so the health committee chairs were persuaded, and they passed the bill on. But then it went to the judiciary committees, where they're more concerned about law enforcement issues, and that's where the bill stalled. There's still a lot of unanswered questions in their mind about federal policy and state policy, and what's the connection between the two. Can states on their own really go forward with an issue like that if the feds disagree?
Right, and in fact, you're mentioning that reminds me of a section that Jefferson Fish wrote about in his book, Legalize, in which he felt like, and other people have written about this also, that one thing about America is that there's all kinds of different people and with strange and different unique beliefs and religious and cultural habits and so forth that vary according to what region of the country you're living in. For instance, in Kentucky, one county may be flowing with liquor, and the next county over, you're in very serious trouble if you're caught with alcohol.
Well, what's interesting you mentioned that, because when alcohol prohibition was repealed, and I understand today is actually the anniversary of its repeal.
Really?
What they did was, by coincidence, what they did was they didn't say, okay, federal law, now it's repealed everywhere. What they did was they said each state, and even I believe each municipality, can set its own policy. And that's why you have this patchwork that you're describing, where some counties might be dry and some might be wet. And there's actually a bill in the U.S. Congress right now to do the same thing for medical marijuana, to say let's let the states decide. And so to me, this states' rights argument cuts across all sorts of party lines. There are many conservatives who believe strongly, they say, in states' rights. And here's a perfect example. Why not let states do what they want?